metaphysical questions, questions about your natal charts. So if you guys have any questions, feel free to comment below. Also, if you guys are watching the live replay and you guys would like your own natal chart reading, synastry reading, progress natal chart reading, mini natal chart reading, or mini synastry reading, the information for all of that is going to be in the description box below. You guys can send me an email and we will go from there. Welcome to everyone joining. I'm answering astrology questions, metaphysical questions, questions about your natal charts. What should we talk about today? Welcome, welcome, welcome. I'm answering astrology questions, metaphysical questions, questions about your natal charts. What should we talk about today? Welcome, welcome, welcome. How's it going, you guys? What is new? What is the 411? Hey, Edward, how's it going? How are you doing? Welcome, welcome, welcome. I'm answering astrology questions, metaphysical questions, questions about your natal charts. So if you guys have any questions, feel free to comment below. What should we talk about today? Is the 2904 in your username your birthday? I'm curious to know. Welcome to everyone joining. I'm answering astrology questions, metaphysical questions, questions about your natal charts. So if you guys have any questions, feel free to comment below. Hey, Beatrice. Hello, Beatrice and family. I love how you say that. How are you guys doing? What is new? How are the vibes? You said, how am I doing? Anything crazy lately? I honestly am feeling the timeline shifts and the timeline jumps. Are you guys feeling the timeline shifts and the timeline jumps? Hey, Green Eyed Crow. Hey, Mel. How are you guys doing? I see your username, so I don't see the full name. So for some of you guys, if it's a different name than your username, I might be using your username compared to what you guys usually maybe have in the past. Yeah, for whatever reason, now they have the usernames instead of the names, how it used to be back in the day. Hey, everyone. You said born 96, 10th December. Nice. You're Sagittarius. Cool. Hey, November. Hey, Missy. Happy Scorpio season. That's my favorite season. Happy birthday to all the Scorpios. My favorite two seasons are Scorpio season and Leo season. How about you guys? You said full moon today. I'm trying to think. I feel like it's on the 5th. I don't really follow it as much. Definitely Google it, you guys. But I feel like whatever's going on with the moon is on like the 5th. I'm not 100% sure though, so definitely double check. But you'll feel the energies. You said, have I heard about the Hopi prophecy? It sounds so familiar, but I don't know exactly what it is. If you want, you can feel free to comment below. Maybe it'll refresh my memory. Hey, Katie, how are you doing? You said Capricorn season. Nice. You said your birthday's tomorrow. Oh my gosh, happy almost birthday. Happy birthday. Yes, it's intense right now with the vibes. It's a lot of Scorpio energy out there. I don't know if it changed now, but the last time I checked, it was like Mars, Mercury, Sun, and I think Lilith. We had 4 placements in Scorpio. You said full moon on the 5th in Taurus. Okay, there it is. Yeah, so it is on the 5th. So it is, okay, so it's going to be a full moon and it's going to be in Taurus. Yes, that makes sense. The full moon is always opposing the sign of whatever season that is. So it's on the 5th, you guys. I'm sure you guys maybe feel the vibes already. Check where you guys have Taurus in your chart. That's where the full moon is going to bring through some sort of closure for you guys. You said Scorpio rising here. And yes, you love fall so much. You named your daughter Autumn. Oh my gosh, I love that. Oh my gosh. And she's a Scorpio sun. I love that. When is her birthday? And let me know, do you have any Scorpio placements in your own chart? Hey, Katie. I've noticed that Scorpio tends to be hereditary. Is that the word? It's like passed down in the family line. You said thoughts on Venus conjunct Venus in synastry. That is perfect. That's a very, very good synastry energy to have. You guys love in the same way. Your love languages are the same. You express your love in the same way. So that's a very, very good synastry to have. And even a friendship, honestly. But yes, any sort of relationship, Venus conjunct Venus. You said Scorpio rising. Oh my gosh, I got so much Scorpio energy in the house tonight. Hello to all my Scorpio energies. You said November 5th is your belated mom's birthday, and then your daughter is November 16th. She will be 25. Actually, yes, I am a huge MJ fan. I actually have a video on him on my other channel. It's called Barbara Talks Some More. I even went to go see the musical that has MJ, like it was about MJ. The storyline was kind of like blurry toward the end, but the music was good. Honestly, I had a really good time. Welcome to everyone joining. What's new, you guys? How are the vibes for you guys? Oh yes, one of you guys were asking me if there was anything wild. Okay, you guys, there's literally like timeline shifts and like they're like playing with the timelines. When I see it psychically, when they start like playing with the timelines, it's like an opening and closing energy, okay? Because they're like shifting the energies is really what it is. So let me tell you guys what happened, how I know. So this is like a small indicator, and you guys can see this in your own lives as well. So some of you guys may know, some of you guys are new, but like I don't drive, so I take the bus. So usually the same bus that I would take, okay, in the evenings would be at like 9:16 p.m. always. And now the scheduled time, so there was no need for it to change. You know, when they change things, it's like the first of the month or like the new year or whatever. There was no announcement, nothing like that. The bus wasn't early. Like the scheduled time was 9:11. And I was like, okay, timeline jump. Like what's going on here? So yeah, they're definitely playing around with the energies. Welcome to everyone. I'm answering astrology questions, metaphysical questions, questions about your natal charts. You said your Scorpio moon, your mom's a Scorpio sun, one sun is a Scorpio moon, and your other sun is a Scorpio rising. Yeah, it's always in the families. Actually, interestingly enough, I met someone over the summer who was connected to my family, like members, so it was like their friend or whatever. So we're not family, but like it's someone's family's friend or whatever, okay? Anyways, that's not even important in the story. But in that family, so that person's the grandma, okay? So that grandma's kids are like the daughter, I think, or the son. I think it's the son, okay? It doesn't even matter. Whoever the kid is, that person, okay, is a Scorpio, and the wife is also a Scorpio. So they have all the Scorpio energy going on between each other, and then the kid has no Scorpio energy. Actually, the kid was a Taurus rising. So I was like, yeah, that kid is gonna have a hard time in that household. Like, in one way, shape, or form, you guys can kind of look at it as like, that kid is coming through to like kind of create balance, yes, but I just feel like because the kid is a Taurus rising and the family has so much Scorpio in their chart, like it's going to be in direct conflict with that kid's self-expression. So it's really, really interesting to see. But most of the time you will see Scorpio energy in like the family's chart. Like it's always passed down. Let's see. I'm just going back up. You said Scorpio in the 4th house with Pluto on the IC, Saturn and Scorpio. Wow, 4th house. What is your moon in? Stella Rose, if you're still in the chat. That's intense. So that means Pluto's in the 4th house for you as well. You might as well be a Scorpio moon with all that energy. Scorpio in the 4th, Pluto on the IC. Let me know what is your moon sign in if you're still in the chat. I'm curious to know. Venus, Scorpio. Hey, yes. You said it's the prophecy of the man in the red hat. There are 9 signs before the man in the red hat takes over and chaos ensues. The last sign is the dwelling in the sky crashes to the earth, the space station, question mark. Okay, I'm not sure. I've heard of the term. I don't remember that story. You said not a lot of Scorpio in your family, but you do have a Scorpio stellium. Interesting. What's going on with this industry between everybody? You said your in-laws have it. Does that count? No, it's usually like within like the family, like the bloodline. You said when your Kundalini first activated, and opened up your third eye to the point of seeing beings. Wow, hearing activity in the house and experiencing trance states and seeing other realities. Any idea how to get to the state? Yeah, you have to clear energy, okay? So you know how I tell you guys about like 2 truths and a lie? So that's the thing with religion. Like in religion and like the theological text, like there's also 2 truths and a lie in there as well, okay? So you have to get in tune with your heart space to be able to discern. But one thing that a lot of them have on point is like, for example, the diet. Like a lot of them are trying to teach people how to get to enlightenment, right? So for example, a lot of them, let's say, have fasting, for example, or let's say eating a specific kind of diet that's like quote unquote higher vibrational foods or something of that sort to clean out your system, especially in the current day and age that we're living in. There's a lot of processed food, a lot of just like junk in the food overall, right? And the way they created society, at least in the Western society, it's all fast, right? So people don't want to make the food and then they go buy the food and it's this like whole cycle, right? And then the whole gym industry, I mean, I could go on a rant about that. That would be a whole story of its own. But anyways, with that being said, you have to cleanse the vessel, you have to keep your vibration high, and you have to come out of the lower chakras so you can kind of reach the frequency. It's like all the frequency thing is really, really what it is. So it's a process, honestly. But yeah, so when you get used to the energy, you can go back then. Do you know what I mean? It's like only while you're learning how to attune yourself to these frequencies can, you know, these things might apply. For example, like the diet or whatever, right? But it's this. So anything to do with like cleansing the vessel and like also just like yourself as a person and as a being, right? You're elevating your frequency, you're elevating your vibe, and then you're opening yourself up spiritually, okay? So that's probably how you could get to that state. A lot of people talk about like meditation. The way that I see it is like quote unquote enlightenment is when you're basically meditating with your eyes open, okay? So the end goal, the way that I see it at least, is to permanently be in that state all the time, okay? So it's a matter of learning how to get to that state, and you have to learn yourself. You have to learn like the frequencies within the body and how basically your psychic abilities work, okay? So it's all connected. It's all connected. You said, aside from the midheaven, what else can you look at for fame potential? Okay, I did a video on that. So there's a few indicators. Depends what kind of fame we're looking at, okay? And also at the same time, it's like you have to kind of like be careful what you wish for kind of vibes, because you also have people who are quote unquote famous, but they're like a serial killer. You know what I mean? So it's like, what kind of fame are we looking at? Obviously, I'm sure you're asking about like the positive fame in a chart, right? But yeah, so it's like, you know, it depends what we're looking at. But yes, so in terms of fame, a lot of things that I've noticed is, yes, 10th house energy. But the thing is, with the 10th house, they could also be very well known in a niche. So let's say they can become like a very well-known lawyer, or let's say, depending on the combinations, right, they can become, let's say, a very well-known tech person. Let's say there's 11th house in there, okay? And then for like online, right, if you want to have like online success, you can look for 11th house energy as well in the chart. Maybe Venus in the 11th, Venus in the 11th, Venus in the 11th, Jupiter in the 11th house, okay? So you can look at that. And then also I talked about Saturn in the 10th, also Saturn conjunct the midheaven. So that's the thing that I talked about also on my shorts, you guys. Basically, when you have Saturn aspecting the midheaven, like that's extended fame. Like the energy can, you know, basically even after you cross out, you can still be known, right? So it's like, what kind of fame are we looking at, right? Is it a one-hit wonder? Is it 15 minutes of fame? Okay, all of these things, because let's say for the 15 minutes of fame, it could be a transit, okay, something that transits over. Maybe it's sudden or something of that sort. If we're looking at sudden, then you're going to look at Uranus. So it's like a combination of things taking place. Okay, sometimes the 12th house. Okay, a lot of singers, musicians have the 12th house, because then if you look at fame in terms of you're clearing karma with a lot of people at once, that's your 12th house, okay? So I have a video on that. If you do the search, if you type in Barbara Talks and maybe fame placements, or even if you type in fame, I'm sure you'll have one of those videos pop up. Or if it was a short, I talked about it in one of my lives way back, okay? Because I used to go live on TikTok back in the day. I used to go live on TikTok back in the day, and then now I'm always live over here. You said, forget fame, you just want the money. Yeah, exactly. That's the other thing too, right? It's like, you might be famous, but you might not have any money, right? So for example, like Nikola Tesla, like he quote unquote became more well-known after his death, right? And he also like crossed out basically having no money, okay? And they also stole all of his stuff allegedly, right? So it's like, what kind of fame are we talking about is really what it is. Is it going to be, you know, you become well-known after you cross out? Like someone discovers, you know, like your diary, for example, okay? Some people, I'm not going to mention everyone's name in this live, because then it pops up at the bottom of the live and it's just like killing the vibe. But yeah, you know, for example, that person's diary, right, that they found, it's like that person is now super well known, but that was after they crossed out, okay? So we have to look at everything, all different types of situations and circumstances. But yes, if you want the money, for the money, you're going to have to look at the second house. You're going to have to look at the even 8th house, can be money as well. You can look at the 10th house as well, okay? So it depends. It's like, also like rooting in fame. The question is like, why do you want to be famous, right? And again, is it like one of you guys said, do you want the money? So is that what you're chasing? Or is it you want to be seen? Okay, so it's like, it's different frequencies connected to all of the things. You said timeline change regarding your working hours just yesterday and today. Not that special, but somehow you relate to the full moon right now. Yeah, I felt it last week. I really felt it. It was really interesting because it's like, okay, have you guys ever seen like in those movies? I don't know like even which movie I'm thinking about right now, but like, you know, when someone almost like enters like into like a different timeline, let's say, and like the image like ripples as if you like dropped like a penny into the water. Like that's how it feels to me. Like last week it like shifted. It literally shifted. So I was like, what's going on? Because it's really, really interesting. So I felt it last week. Let's see what else you guys saying in here. How are you guys doing? I'm answering astrology questions, metaphysical questions, questions about your natal charts. Make sure you guys like the live if you so choose to. You can double tap on the screen to like the live so we can meet more astrology friends. You said moon and Pisces in the 8th house. Okay, so it's still in that 8th house. That's intense. I'm curious to know about the aspects. Is your moon trining the Pluto? That is intense. I'm curious to know, like, were you the family scapegoat with all that energy in there? Venus in the 11th, yes. I'm not sure if you were answering when we were talking about fame or if you just wanted to know about Venus in the 11th. But Venus in the 11th could literally bring through abundance through the internet, okay? So that could be an online business. That could be content creation. That could be, let's say, crypto, okay? But if you guys are going to dabble into crypto, make sure you do your research, okay? You said when looking at degree theory and you have 0 degree, what astro sign does it belong to? That sign, okay? So if it's 0 degrees Aries, it's in Aries, okay? If you're looking at, the degree theory overall, they're considered the special degrees, okay? If we're looking at like the Nicola Stoyanovich degree theory, if that's what you're referring to, they're just considered the special degrees, so they're like their own category, the 0 and the 29. Actually, no, the 29 pertains, I believe, to the Leo degree. So the 0 doesn't actually have any degree, any signs connected to it, because the way that he did it was like the first degree is Aries because it's like the first house, so then you go like multiples of 12. So 0 degree technically doesn't have anything in that degree theory, because I've heard other people talk about other degree theories, so I'm not sure what that, like, those degree theories are, but in his degree theory, he doesn't have 0 pertaining to anything. Hey everyone, hey 3 Heavens Healing, how you guys doing? Hey Paul, hey, how are you guys doing? I see your username, so I don't see the full name, but I kind of, because of the picture and the name, I kind of have an idea who everybody is. You said this Taurus North Node, hey, that's Fallon. This Taurus North Node in the 10th house indicate a delay in career success, quote unquote delay after the age of 35. Scorpio, Sun, Mercury, Pluto, Saturn in the 4th, and then you said Taurus, Moon, Leo, rising. By the way, what is in your 10th house overall? Can you tell me, is the Saturn opposing the 10th house for you because it's in the 4th? That's the thing. It's like, it feels like a delay, but it's like, it's after the age of 35 actually, okay? And it doesn't mean that you're going to wait until you turn 35, okay, guys? That's the most important thing to understand with Saturn. It means you're working and you're climbing toward Saturn, okay? And that's for everybody in their natal chart. The 10th house, you're climbing to the 10th house. So there's a lot of things that actually have to be cleared for that 10th house to be activated. I have a video on here called The Importance of the 4th House, okay? So a lot of things connected to the home have to be cleared before you even get to the 10th house. So for everybody, the 10th house technically actually gets activated after the age of 35, okay? The fact that people are like in our face and they're young, okay, that's like the inversion. But if we go by astrology, okay, it's after the age of 35. Now, if you have midheaven, for example, opposing that energy, that's probably what's creating the quote unquote delay, okay? But it's not actually a delay. It just, other things have to take place first, and then it gets activated after the age of 35. Now, that being said, also, like I was saying in one of the shorts this week as well, you don't want to be sitting in your room waiting until you turn 35, because Saturn rewards you the more work you put in toward it, okay? So it's like you have to climb to the Saturn energy, okay? To the 10th house, essentially, okay? Hey, everyone, how you guys doing? You said Moon and North Node and Taurus in the 10th house. Can you tell me, is the Saturn in the 4th opposing all of that? You said, what do I think about Saturn retrograde in a natal chart? That's an absence of a father figure early on in life, mental, emotional, or physical. So maybe he was working all the time. Maybe he wasn't emotionally present. Maybe he was traveling for work all the time. Maybe he was just gone, okay? Maybe he was checked out, okay? So that's that Saturn retrograde. So then you yourself, okay, because it always comes back down to the self, you then struggle with masculine energy. So you struggle to be a go-getter, okay? You struggle to maybe initiate things. You struggle to maybe have boundaries. So then you have to work on that, because everything comes back down to the self, okay? I'm answering astrology questions, metaphysical questions, questions about your natal charts. Yeah, that's what I learned in general. So I'm not sure what he said in his degree theory, but in general, when I learned about the 0 and the 29 degrees, basically what it means is like you don't get out of that energy until you master that energy. So let's say you're at 0 degrees of Aries, you're meant to master the Aries energy, okay? You don't get out of it. So whatever's going on with Aries, you know, the light side, the shadow side, usually I find because of the way the earth plane is, you're going to go into the shadows first, right? So let's say you have 0 degrees of Aries, you're going to go into conflict issues, okay? Anger management issues, being explosive, feeling bad about it after, okay? Those types of things, like the shadow of the Aries, being impulsive, being reckless, starting things, getting bored, dropping them, okay? Starting something new, like always, you know, chasing the high of the starting, you know, factor of things, right? So that's that Aries energy. So it's like when you guys have 0 degrees, you want to look at both of the energies. Yes, the divine version, but because of the way the earth plane is, everyone kind of goes into the shadow first, okay? Until you basically integrate. You said, yes, your 4th house has Scorpio stellium opposing your Taurus in the 10th house. So the Saturn, is the Saturn opposing the midheaven? I'm curious to know. Because that's your delay, okay? So that's kind of what's making you feel like there's a delay, okay? But it's just Saturn kind of putting you through trials and tribulations. And you guys, keep in mind, okay? Saturn is always asking you, how bad do you want something, okay? Because those are the people who succeed down here on this earth plane, okay? It has nothing to do with anything else. It has all to do with, like, how much are you willing to work towards something? Like, how perseverant are you going to be? Like, that grit energy, okay? That's Saturn. is really what it is. So Saturn basically rewards people who put in that effort. Unfortunately, that's just how it is at this point in time. Maybe it'll change in the future, but that's just how it is, okay? So if you have like the Saturn energy taking place in your chart, okay, any sort of Saturn aspects, Saturn's going to really put you through the trials and tribulations, okay? Because it's basically wondering, like, how bad do you want that thing, okay? It's like that quote. All of the Capricorn people or Saturn dominant people, they're always going to have the quote or the tattoo that says, fall down 7 times, get up 8, okay? That's all Saturn's doing, okay? It keeps pushing you down, basically seeing how bad do you want something, okay? So that's the thing. So then sometimes things might feel like a delay, okay? But you're kind of almost building that resilience in that area is really what it is. And at the end of the day, I mean, at the end of the day, it's really interesting because that's just how the earth plane is, okay? It's not like fairies and rainbows down here. You said, can you explain the difference between sign versus house? Okay. In my energy, you said, or in your energy, you said, for example, you have Pisces, and then you said you have a significant 12 placements. Okay, this is how you guys can understand this, okay? Basically, okay, the placement, so whatever it is, sun, moon, Lilith, whatever, okay? That's what the energy is, okay? So that's what the energy is, okay? Then you have the sign. That's how the energy is being expressed. And then the house is the area of life where the energy is being expressed. So that's how you guys can differentiate, okay? You're gonna have to put the story together for yourselves, okay? But it's like, again, let's say you have sun in Pisces, okay? The energy is Pisces, right? So the sun is expressing itself in the Pisces way, right? So the way that you conduct yourself, your ego, the way that you show up is Pisces. But let's say you have it in the 3rd house, that's going to be in the area of communication, okay? In the area of, writing, for example. So that's kind of how you guys can differentiate between the energies. Yeah. Okay, so you said, okay, your midheaven is in Taurus, so it is opposing. So the Saturn is opposing the midheaven. Yeah. It's this, but also that's one of those placements that when you overcome Saturn, it gives you that extended success, okay, is really what it is. So basically Saturn prolongs anything, okay? So let's say, even if you're looking at synastry, you want to look for Saturn, okay? If you have Venus, Saturn is prolonging the relationship, okay? So when you have Saturn opposing the midheaven, yes, it might feel like a challenge, but it's actually prolonging the success, okay? So you'll see the fruits of your labor usually after the age of 35, okay? And that's not to discourage people. You still want to work towards something, okay? And that's usually in general when you see people's quote unquote success, okay? Because you have to work towards something down here on this earth plane. You can't compare yourselves to these people who were born into certain industries or who are like shoved in everyone's face, okay? Because those people are born into those things, okay? That's important to keep in mind. So it's this, and that's like part of the inversion of the energy, okay? Because that's not really how it works with astrology, okay? With astrology, usually you start to succeed at a lot of these Saturnian things, whatever's going on with your Saturn, after the age of 35. And the whole reason for this is, okay, in case you guys maybe don't know, is because every planet has its quote-unquote maturity, okay? So Saturn's maturity is age 35, 36, okay? Is this. And it's interesting because usually, even in Chinese astrology, and I don't do Chinese astrology, so you guys can double check this, okay? But I'm pretty sure you come back around, okay? In terms of like the best year for success, I'm pretty sure is also around the age of 36. So isn't it interesting how that like coincides with Saturn? You're turning 35 tomorrow. Amazing. You said you listened to a couple of people here on the tube and you said that they say the Matrix is ending. Have I heard about this? And if so, can I share my thoughts? My opinion is like, it's already done, but people keep interacting with it. So if we still have people that are fueling it, it's still going to keep going. Does that make sense? So it's up to the people is really what it is. Like it's the chicken and the egg. To me, I felt the energy finished because I talk about it on my threads. You guys check out my threads. But I talk about it on my threads. Like to me, like frequency-wise, it's a whole new world, okay? But everyone's stuck in the density, okay? Because of the way it's been, right? So if people stop engaging with it, it'll be done. But if people are still engaging with it, they're continuing it. Does that make sense? So it's up to the people, Like I see people complaining all the time, this, that, and I'm like, okay, well, what are you doing to change that? You know what I mean? Like you're still engaging in the same behaviors. You're still doing the same things. You're still in the same routine. So it's this, it's like the people that are fueling it is really what it is. It's not going to end by itself, okay? So that's the thing, like what's important to understand because that's something that the collective needs to kind of overcome, okay? Because it's kind of connected to like the savior complex and all these things, like, you know, putting the energy outside of you, giving your power away. That's all of a sudden someone's going to lift the curtain and be like, okay, show's over. It's not that. It's like if people are still engaging with all of these matrix types of things, it's going to keep running. Does that make sense? So it's this. So the more people that unplug, okay, start doing their own thing, picking themselves, listening to their intuition, you operate outside of it, is really what it is. And then it just like dwindles off, is really what it is. So have you guys heard in the past, like the story, and this was also one of those Mandela effect things, because I remember the story of Nefertiti, okay? That Nefertiti didn't have a tomb because Nefertiti just quote unquote disappeared, okay? And then they changed the story, okay? Because recently when I Googled it, they were like, oh no, she did have a tomb. From what I remember, okay, back in the day, especially before like the whole, like everyone posting everything on the internet, right? Like all the information and misinformation, from what I remember, maybe some of you guys remember, I don't know if this is a Mandela effect, because I'm convinced that they try to mess with our memories too with all these things, okay? Like the story that I remember was she disappeared, okay? They didn't have a tomb for her because she disappeared. And I don't know if there was other people with her, okay? My theory is that they actually shifted dimensions so they couldn't see her anymore, okay? Does that make sense? I don't want to take you guys too much into the crown chakra. Schumann resonance, yeah, no, it's real. It's real. It's the collective's consciousness. Oh, good. You said you turned 51 Saturday and you never felt more successful. Yeah, that's the inversion down here on this earth plane. So people feel like they're like left behind, or like they're missing out on something, or so they're focusing on other people, or so they're comparing themselves to other people. Every soul, if you're in tune with your intuition, you have your own path, okay, is really what it is. And that's the biggest inversion down here. Because, okay, you guys, the whole thing here, and I talk about this on my threads, okay? The whole thing here to understand is because this are plane, MATRX, like whatever you guys want to call it, like whatever it is at this point, honestly, in my opinion, allegedly, okay, is ruled by Saturn, right? So because it's ruled by Saturn, Saturn also rules karma, okay? So what they do, allegedly, is they try to push all these things on people because they want you like bound in situations, whether it's like a financial contract, whether it's this type of contract with this person, whether it's a job contract, whatever it is, okay? They want you bound in these situations before, okay, your first Saturn return, before your prefrontal cortex develops, okay? And then you spend your whole life trying to unbind yourself, okay, from these situations. So that's kind of how they trick people, allegedly, in my opinion. So it's this. So honestly, like the best thing that I heard, I mentioned this so many times, okay, but like back in the day, maybe 2021, I heard somebody on the clock app and they were basically saying that adolescence should be extended. And ever since I heard that in my head, okay, I just connected it to the Saturn return. I'm saying, I'm just adding to that theory that your quote unquote adolescence should be extended, okay, until your Saturn return, which is when your prefrontal cortex develops, okay? Up until that point in time, you're wilding out, okay? Your brain's not fully formed, is really what it is, okay? So it's like, why are you able to make all these decisions when your brain's not fully formed? So that's what it is. So then the question is why? And then you have to think about it. The whole reason that's a thing is because they want people to be energetically bound either to other people, situations, circumstances, financial things, whatever it is, obligations, all these things before you've like developed, before your brain has developed, before you've even decided what it is that you want to do, okay? So that's the whole thing here. And then because you're spending so much time then trying to unbind yourself from this, you're quote unquote wasting the time, okay? Because ultimately at the end of the day, yes, it seems like, you know, whatever, however long humans live, like what, 70 to 80 years, some people live to 90, whatever the median is, okay? It's like, it seems like a long time, but it's not, okay? So that's the other thing that I've been thinking about recently. And it's like a lot of people, I think they just like chill because they think they have a lot of time, okay? If you have Saturn in your chart, let's say you're Saturn dominant, or let's say you're Capricorn dominant, for example, you kind of have this knowingness that actually there isn't time. Like, you know, time is limited on this or plane. It's kind of what I'm getting at, okay? So a lot of people waste all their time on stupid things, okay? Upset about this, upset about that. It's just like, instead of focusing on themselves. And that's what it all is. And then it's like, because it's the Saturnian structure, okay, the MATRX, like whatever you guys want to call it, boom, you reincarnate again. Because when you're about to cross out, you're like, oh, I should have done that. Why did I waste so much time on this? Or this is what I wanted to do. Do you know what I mean? So that's the whole thing down here. That is the whole thing down here. Hey, Saturn. You said you always, or hey, concerned. Oh my gosh, I called you Saturn, but it's because you talked about Saturn in your comment here. You said, you know, you always jump in on the Saturn topic, but you guess people would say that you're pretty successful, but a lot of that didn't even start until you were 43 years old. It's too bad younger people are given standards through the internet, exactly, and elsewhere. And then you said, quote unquote, successful, whatever that means, exactly. That's what I'm trying to deliver as the message, okay? Because then people feel like they're left behind, and then it like stunts you because it's like you're not within the body, you're giving your power away. Does that make sense? You're focusing on other people. So it's this. And honestly, anytime, like whatever you were doing up until that first Saturn return anyways gets destructed by the time the Saturn return comes through. So might as well just enjoy life. You said after our 30s, we start to gravitate toward the North Node. That's how you feel. This topic is very interesting. Exactly. Because the North Node, and that's interesting that Concern mentioned that, the North Node, I'm pretty sure you guys are going to have to look this up as well, but I'm pretty sure it quote unquote matures at the age of 48, okay? Which is your life purpose, which makes sense because like back in the day, and again, don't quote me on that, like Google that, you guys. I'm pretty sure it's that, but you guys can double check that for reference, okay? You guys can Google and be like, when do all the planets mature? And have the coolest new theory. I'll get to that in just a second. You said, are there supposed to be 13 signs, months, and therefore we're following inaccurate charts? 13 is considered the unlucky number. Maybe they've inverted astrology, numerology. Okay, so are you ready for this? Okay, now I'm going to get started on this tangent. Okay, so the whole thing with 13 is actually the number of the feminine. Okay, so 13 is the number of the feminine and the feminine energy, and that's basically like under attack down here on this earth plane. Okay. And also, if you look at the feminines actually have 13 menstrual cycles, okay? So think about it this way. They were able to genetically modify everything allegedly, except the menstrual cycle, which is actually 13, okay? It's 13 months. It's not 12 months, okay? It's 13 months. So if you follow that logic, that still means that within the feminine energy DNA, okay, within the female DNA, like the biologically female DNA, okay, there's something there that's still not tampered with, okay? And it's connected to the womb. So basically, naturally and innately, the feminines, okay, women, operate outside of the MATRX, okay? But a lot of them have given their power away to the MATRX, okay? So that being said, that's part of the inversion too, okay? In terms of the 13 signs, it's like they've done something with the structure to cancel or try to cancel out the feminine energy, which is 13, make it seem like it's unlucky, demonize it, and then try to basically hijack it and create it into 12, okay? And who knows, maybe they're on the 13th month calendar and we're not. That's what I'm saying. I said that once in one of my lives too. Who knows if the information we even have is accurate? You know what I mean? Because they know, like for example, they know like right now at this point in time, because they also follow astrology, they know that everyone's going to be into astrology now, right? So this is why you have to get in tune with the heart space and feel into things, okay? Like what does it feel like? What does this energy feel like? Is really what it is, because otherwise it's like you're going to get caught up in the two truths and a lie is really what it is. You said 13 also means unity, exactly, amongst the MASONS. I always had a theory that we're actually operated, I talked about this in one of my lives as well. I always had a theory that we were actually operated under a shadow matriarchy, not even a shadow patriarchy, because they're all using magic and all these things in the shadow sense. So I was like, are we actually operating under a shadow matriarchy? Them, not us, but them, okay? And we're out here like fighting for our lives in the shadow patriarchy, like, because that's also an inversion. You guys have to look and see that they've inverted everything down here, right? So it's this, and it's not like us versus them and this is better and that's better. It's just like, you know, in terms of certain people trying to harness power, okay, they're doing it through magic and rituals, and that's feminine energy, but it's in the shadow, okay? So they've inverted that basically for themselves. You said, let's see, I'm just going back up here to see what else you guys were saying earlier. Okay, that's what I wanted to tell you guys too, okay? Before I move on to the next question. So something that I've been thinking about recently is, okay, so are you guys ready for this theory? Are you guys ready for this theory? Oh my gosh, I'm excited about this one. So, okay, bouncing off of my original theory that we're ruled by Saturn down here, which again, I'm convinced we are, and I came to that conclusion I've told you guys in the past. Okay, so if you're new here, check out my previous lives to see how I've come to that conclusion, but I'm pretty sure I did like a snip video too, where I talk about the Saturn rulership down here. So I was thinking in my mind, and I was thinking, and I was like, you know what's interesting? So, okay, look at it this way, right? We have all the energies, okay, and again, the planets are not physical. They're like basically dimensional, like they're like overlays around the earth plane, okay? For whatever reason, and that's what I need to basically come to conclude still, okay? I still want to know why they're obsessed with Saturn. I know Saturn is Satan, but I want to know why Saturn. So I'm still formulating that thought. But anyway, so Saturn basically operates everything down here, right? And so we are operated underneath the Saturnian structure energetically. So then I was thinking in my head, and I was like, okay, so we have Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto. And I was like, those are basically outside of the energetic structure, if you think about it, right? So people who have, let's say, a lot of Uranus energy, to me, Uranus, like let's say you're Uranus dominant, let's say you have a lot of Uranus aspects, or again, Aquarius dominant or something of that sort, to me, the energy always translates to out of bounds, okay? So you're not within this structure, you're outside of it, okay? Energetically. And then of course we have Neptune, which is like off in the ethers and the spiritual planes. And then also we have Pluto, okay? So we also have Pluto, and Pluto is just like the destructor and so on and so forth. So I was thinking in my head and I was like, okay, I'm like, what if when they officially discovered like all of these external planets, like that's when the people started to come into the matrix with the energetic power to actually destruct the matrix? Like, wouldn't that make sense? Hey everyone, oh my gosh, I had a fun Halloween. Yes, how was your Halloween, you guys? What were you guys for Halloween? I was Minnie Mouse. Hey Esperanza, how are you doing? Thank you for being here. Yes, I will have another broadcast. Let's see, you said you believe the reason, there is a reason for the 13. Yeah, it is. It is. So that's the other thing too, okay? So again, people who have wombs, okay, who have the feminine energy, who basically have 13 cycles, you're actually already operating outside of the structure naturally. Do you know what I mean? So it's like you have to get back to your energetic roots and basically like shed all of these like matrix overlays off of you, okay? Is really what it is. So anything to do with giving your power away, not being in your power, chasing after people, like all these things, okay? And then just coming into your power. You're just like naturally a vessel. Like you don't have to do anything, okay? So that's the other like rant and like story. So most things with like modern spirituality are actually more so for men and like masculine energies, because, and again, this has nothing to do with like us versus them, okay? I'm just saying because of the biological like construct, okay, energetically, okay? So because a lot of like the masculines would be in the ego, right? That's why like all the spirituality is connected to like ego deaths and like meditation and focus on a spot, right? But it's like if you are operating again out of the 13 cycles, right, and you have a womb, this should naturally come to you already, okay? Is really, really what it is. That's kind of what I'm getting at. So it's like, it's a matter of coming back to the natural energy and like basically reworking those templates within, okay? So the feminine energy, as I always talk about, it has to come into their power first and then lead the masculine into their heart space, okay? Is really, really what it is. You weren't feeling it. Yes, I was like, I decided at the last minute. I posted the picture on my Instagram story if you guys want to see my costume. Oh my gosh, I love Frida. What did Frida say or do? I even, like with my hair, I did like the Minnie Mouse ears. Oh my gosh, it was so fun. Some people were giving out potatoes. Like, I don't know what's like the Halloween potato propaganda about. Like, other people knew about this. I guess this was like an inside joke. I don't know, because I was like, is everybody okay? Like, what is going on? You said that's your Scorpio stellium showing my Saturn placements. I ain't got no blank and no blank ain't got me. I don't know what song that is, but I'm singing it anyways. You said you're 63 and you feel like you have your second wind, probably after your second Saturn return. You said you're exploring life and all of its possibilities, letting go of people pleasing and listening to the self. Good. It's a peaceful time for you. Hey Anna, how are you guys doing? You said, what are my thoughts? Day religion? What are my thoughts, day religion and its connection to astrology? What's day religion? You said, why do me think humans struggle so much with the desire to live righteously through the construct of religion? Because some people, this is the problem, okay? Some people need the religion because they like don't have a moral compass. But it's like in my mind, I'm like, are you that low IQ? Like, what's going on? You know what I mean? So some people need that, or they need something to believe in. You know, have you guys ever noticed? Oh my gosh, have you guys ever seen that meme? Where it's like people who are like super into drugs turn religious or something like that. Oh my gosh, I don't know if I saved it, but it's so funny, okay? So it's like, I find it interesting, and that happens also with people who are like into the new age. They also sometimes turn to religion, and it's like, it's two truths and a lie. I find that people go back to like whatever their roots are. For example, someone grew up in like a super Christian home or like a super Christian family or whatever, then they discovered the new age, they started dabbling in the new age and they don't understand the metaphysical things, okay? Then they have like these dark experiences and they're gonna be like, this is demonic. It's like, it's not demonic, it's your own energy. Do you know what I mean? It's like the energy you're putting into things. If you're doing spells and you're engaging with these things for ego-driven reasons, obviously the energy is gonna come back to you because it's not a heart-centered reason, it's an ego-driven reason, right? People who are scammers and so on and so forth. So it's like, I find that those people, because they have dark experiences, then they revert back to religion, because it's like you know, it's kind of like, because we live in like a duality, right? They're like, oh, because there's darkness, there has to be light, there has to be a God. But it's like, okay, why can't you just believe in a God without believing in religion? Because the modern day religions are also shadow patriarchal and they're also inverted. So it's just like, it's really, really interesting to me. Like, I just find it interesting, like the thinking within people. So I think it depends on the person's upbringing and like what their like background was in terms of like religion in general, right? Like I find a lot of people who did have a religious background, they dabble into, let's say, the metaphysical world, they have a bad experience, they were back, okay, to religion. But it's like, it's almost like their minds can't kind of comprehend, or the indoctrination is maybe that deep, I'm not sure, that it's like, yes, there can be a God or like a benevolent source or something of that sort that's not connected to religion, okay? Because it's like, religion is very restrictive. They're gonna be like, you have to do this on a Sunday, you have to do this on this day. And it's like, if we were to like sit down and like really explore even that, we'd have to think about it and we'd be like, what's going on here? Because for example, Saturday is actually Saturn's day, okay? And it's so interesting because when I was younger and I started working, ever since I was working, I always work on Saturdays. It's just kind of happened that way. And then I realized, I'm like, oh my gosh, it's Saturn's day. And it makes so much sense, okay? Why, like, again, see, when you're going with the flows of the energies, like it makes so much sense for me, okay? When I would work, I would just naturally work on Saturdays. So, I mean, I guess you can say chicken and the egg. Maybe I'm used to that schedule, I guess. But in general, like even now when I don't have to work on a Saturday, I still sometimes work on Saturdays. It just like feels better energetically, okay? You know, and it's like, that's another inversion that like messes with people. It's like the weekend is the Saturday, but actually Saturday is Saturn's day. So it's like, you technically shouldn't be working on that day. Do you know what I mean? You shouldn't be off, I mean, on that day. Like, you can do whatever you want, but it's like Saturn is work, right? So it's so interesting. Like, they've inverted everything. They've even inverted like the week, the work week, right? It's like Saturn's day, Saturday. You said you see that sometimes with people maybe who go from one extreme to the other, maybe they have shame around what they do used to believe. Yeah, I think it's that, but I think it's also like, okay, this is what I want you guys to understand, okay? You said this is why you literally come out of your woo-woo closet. You said this is literally why you don't come out of your woo-woo closet. You don't want to hurt feelings. You're kind of really getting over it though. Yeah. I don't know what to say, because it's like, depends how sometimes old the person is and how much like they're open to certain things, right? Some people are never going to change and that's just like their journey in this lifetime. You know what I mean? You know? But it's like, at the same time, like, why should you put your beliefs on that person? Like, I just feel like as a collective, we're too enmeshed. Like, why does everyone have to know what everyone's doing? You know what I mean? Like, why does everyone have to be all up in each other's business? Like, why do you have to tell them that? You know what I mean? Like, you know, it'll go over their head anyways, is the way that I see it. So it's this. I understand that you don't want to hurt their feelings, but it's like, why would you even have to tell them? You know, if they're, especially like in their own corner doing their own thing. One of you said a certain religion don't realize they're worshiping moon goddesses. I find that one that you mentioned, Lisa, to be the most inverted one, actually. That one has the darkest energy to me out of all of them. Because it's like, okay, this is what I need you guys to understand, okay? Connected to religion. Religion is two truths and a lie, okay? So when you're, let's say, reading the verses, you know, reading certain things, and it's like, we have to explore deeper, like, and I'm not a psychologist, that's always one of my disclaimers, but it's like, we have to explore deeper and be like, why do you, like, where does this root from? Okay, it roots from some form of anxiety. So it's like, why do you have anxiety? And it's like usually also connected to like OCD, right? Obsessive compulsive energies. And again, I'm not diagnosing anyone, but it's like, you know, people usually turn to these things when they feel like things are out of their control, I find, right? Especially when people go into like, you know, OCD things, it's like they're trying to control whatever they can, okay? Who start reading these things to soothe them, and maybe that helps them, like that's their coping mechanism, right? But it's like reading certain verses, you don't even know what you're actually reading, okay? Because it's like, it's two truths and a lie. So with that being said, it's like you could be connecting to the truth, you're like, yes, this resonates with me. And like all religious people, they're not gonna be able to explain half the things in those books, okay? Like a lot of the time when they get challenged with a certain thing or certain aspect that is within their books, they're going to be like, they're going to like go into cognitive dissonance, they're going to attack you, okay? And then they're going to fight with you, and you're going to be like, okay, but why did that take place, okay? Or why did that, you know, certain situation take place? Maybe some of you guys are in the same thought frequency as me. I just don't want to mention those individuals because they're very cultish to me, like that specific group. And like as soon as you mention like the name is like a whole thing. So I'm not even going to get into that, but it's all of them really, right? Like all of them have the two truths and a lie. Okay. So what you guys need to understand metaphysically is, you know, people want to soothe themselves, right? So they're going to go and read the verses to like calm themselves down. That actually happened to me. Oh my gosh, you guys. Okay. So when I was flying to, I'm trying to think, I was flying to Vegas, but I think the first flight I had a layover, and it might have been somewhere in the Midwest. I don't remember. But anyways, the person who was sitting next to me was reading the Bible, and I was like, and the person was young, and I'm like, what's going on right now? Because like in my mind, I'm like, we should be way past this. Like, what's happening? Okay. So this person's like reading the Bible and so on and so forth. And like this person had a very interesting look. I was like, this person's definitely Mormon. Like there's something going on here and so on and so forth. But I'm like, okay, why is this person reading the Bible? Long story short, like the seats got switched and like I didn't want to be in the corner. I went to the back like to sit like by myself, like where no one's around me. Because I'm like, I don't want to sit around anybody. I'm like, I don't know what's going on over here. Like you can do your own thing. I'm just gonna go sit to the back. And that wasn't the reason. It's like we accidentally switched seats. So that person accidentally sat by the window and then I was in the aisle. So I was like, okay, I can deal with this. But then afterwards, you know, I was like, oh, okay, we're in the wrong seats. And if you want to switch, whatever, blah, blah. So anyways, then they were like, oh, can we switch? And I was like, okay, that's fine. And then I went to the back and I found empty seats. And I'm like, you can just do your own thing over there. I'm just going to go in the back, like, sit by myself in my own corner, mind my own business. And then in my head, I'm like, why were they like reading the Bible? Like what's going on? So maybe they're afraid of planes. I don't know. But then later I realized and I was like, oh my goodness, like all these, you know, people are talking about the rapture coming. I'm like, literally, like this person was like reading the Bible probably because like, you know, they thought the rapture was coming. So I was like, okay, like that's literally what went down with that person. But anyways, go back to what I was saying. So you're going to read these things. You're going to be like, yeah, this resonates with me. But then there's going to be like that one thing and people aren't in tune with their bodies to be like, that's off or it doesn't feel right. They kind of take all of it. So it's like when you're reading the verse, okay, it's like you're doing magic without realizing, okay? So you're reading it and it's like the truth, you know, can resonate with you and elevate you, but then something that's the quote unquote lie or something that is, you know, inverted, you connect to that energy and you're actually then doing black magic on yourself or like dark magic on yourself. I hope that makes sense. So that's the struggle with these things because it's like there are a lot of truths and that's what hooks people, but then there's also the lie and that's the narcissism. It's like the bait and switch. So when people are connecting to the lie or the inversion or whatever it is, you're actually basically invoking dark energy, okay? I really, really hope that makes sense. Hey, Gabriella, how are you doing? You said, oh, interesting about Gen Z being religious. I always felt like they were more open. You said it's very inverted, like a performance almost. Interesting. You guys are so funny. You said religion is also about, you said Barbara flying to Vegas. Yeah, I'm also convinced that Vegas, allegedly in my opinion, is a huge spot for traffic lights, okay? Ing of people. Traffic lights ing of people. I hope you guys know what I'm saying there. That's just my own opinion, allegedly. I just got such an eerie vibe when I was there. I was like, and it's so interesting that they call it Sin City. Anyways, the whole reason I flew into Vegas, it wasn't even for Vegas. Like, you know how people are like, Vegas? Like, no. I flew into Vegas because I was trying to go to Antelope Canyon. I was trying to go to the Seven Magic Mountains. Like, that was what I wanted to see. But yeah, it was definitely an interesting experience when I was there because I was like, what is going on here? Like, it's a very eerie energy. But yeah, I think there's a lot of traffic lighting going on there, allegedly, in my opinion. You said religion is also about projecting to find happiness in this life instead of going within to find happiness and transcend this material realm. Exactly. Religion desperately needs spirituality. Yeah. But then that's the struggle. Hey, Gabriella, how's it going? Oh my gosh, you're going to Slovenia. Nice. That's awesome. I haven't been to Slovenia yet. You said it's literally so challenging to feel innately called to occult or mysticism. You studied since it's literally so challenging to feel innately called to occult or mysticism. You studied since you were a child, but definitely you have sought out religion to self-soothe so much conflict within the framework. Yeah, and again, that has to go, like you'd have to, again, I'm not a psychologist, but you have to explore and think about, you know, what took place in the upbringing. Like, was the upbringing religious? Okay, because it's like the religion really puts people into a cognitive dissonance. Like, you know, people, it's interesting, like people still really, really like believe in these things. Like, it's really interesting because it's like, again, it's like you're putting your power onto an external source versus like taking it back within. And that's the other thing I talked about on my thread. So you know how like they try to say that like in Satanism that, you know, you're not believing in a god, you think you're the god. And in my head, I'm like, what if that's inverted too? Like, what if the actual religion is inverted into Satanism, allegedly in my opinion, and like them trying to be like, oh, like it's Satanism if you think like you're the god or whatever. But I'm not saying you think you're the god. I'm just saying like finding that energy within the self, like the power within the self versus like putting it on another person and externally. So You said, you said you also think Gen Z is open-minded, but you work with a lot of Gen Z people and they are more religious than you would have expected. Yeah, and then you said the trad wife stuff. Yeah, because they're pushing that propaganda on them on the clock app. Okay, they're pushing all that propaganda, the conservative stuff. Okay, and they're pushing it, and they are all chronically online. Allegedly, in my opinion. So because they're chronically online, they're like feeding this, or like they're being fed this information. So they're all going toward that. Like, all these things, like even like these conversations around gender roles and, people giving their power away financially to another person, like that's all a very slippery slope. And I think that's very dangerous. Okay. I understand that it's like economics struggles. Okay. Economic struggles and all these things are happening. But it's like if you live in a country and you have the ability to be financially independent, why would you give your power away to another person for them to have financial control over you? Like, I just don't understand. But that's what's being pushed on these apps. That's the information. Like, that's literally being pushed, right? So that's why they're kind of being like directed in that direction and they don't even know it. So yeah, you said this is great to hear about Gen Z. Yeah, it's really interesting. The energy is inverted there too, okay? Because technically, originally they were open-minded and now they're pushing them in that pipeline. Yeah, energetically, like that's what they're trying to do. It's up to them. Are they going to go into that direction or not, okay? But all these conversations, like I understand where it's rooting in. It's because the economy, quote unquote, and that's all done by design and on purpose, but because the economy is not doing well. Okay, but I think it's all about perspective. Like if you're willing to work and you're willing to look for opportunities in certain places, like you will find those opportunities, okay? Is really what it is. But it's like a lot of people don't want to work, which I understand is like capitalism burnout, but at the same time, we're still in the capitalistic system. It's like hard to explain because like you still have to be realistic as to what is happening. And at the same time, I'm like, what are people doing to even take the structure down? They're not doing anything other than complaining. So it's like you complaining isn't doing anything is really what it is, So then they're putting themselves in these vulnerable situations, okay? Where they're like, oh, this person should, pay everything for me and, they should be the one with all the finances, so they stay at home and they don't do anything. Like that is a very dangerous place to be. Like I'm just gonna say that, like, so they're kind of pushing that narrative is really what it is. Like it sounds maybe good in theory, it sounds like a great plan, right? Because people don't want to work, right? Especially when it comes to like the whole stay-at-home wife and stay-at-home mom narrative and all these things. Like I understand, right? In theory, it's great, but at the same time, you give your power away to another person. People are people at the end of the day. It doesn't matter who it is, okay? It can be a friend. Even you give your power away to this person, the energy is going to flip, right? And they're going to start kind of taking control or like puppeteering, okay? Or holding it over your head is basically what it is. Yes, Lisa. Oh my gosh, I had to basically mute that person or whatever because like I'm not falling for this propaganda, because a lot of these people who are pushing the trad wife content are people who are either already wealthy or they come from money or they make their money by pushing the trad wife content. Like they have their own money is really what it is. You know what I mean? So it's like you still have an income coming in and you're trying to push the narrative to get people to not work. Like what's happening here? Thank you. It's okay. Like everyone will eventually wake up. Okay. It's just like, the thing is, it's like, it's the whole thing what I was mentioning earlier about your energy being siphoned before your Saturn return, before your brain develops. It all sounds great before your brain develops. Okay. But after your brain develops, okay, again, around your Saturn return, 25, 26, when the prefrontal cortex develops and you are now, in this situation where you're bound, okay, it's harder to get out of those things, right? So it's really interesting to see like the energetic propaganda that they push. And I just wonder, because I'm just like, do people, I mean, I guess they're not in tune with their intuition at all. Because it's like, how do you feel in these situations? Like, does it feel good? But I guess it's hard for people to tell because they're not in tune with their intuition, Yeah, so it's really interesting to see. Do any of you guys watch Love is Blind? Did any of you guys watch the most recent season? Let me know. I'm just going back up to see what you guys were saying up here. You said, oh, thank you so much. You said better than being a psychologist. Yeah, exactly. Because I don't have a license, so I can say whatever I want. That's why I didn't bother going in that realm. You said, what is my advice for someone having Mercury opposite Uranus? Should you keep your opinion to yourself whenever there is a friend discussion? Never keep your opinion to yourself. Obviously, as long as you're not hurting someone, I guess. But like, why shut your throat chakra off? Yay, I'm glad that it resonated. You said it's possible the way you dress and your personal style is Leo because that's where your Venus is. I guess you were answering somebody else. You said you also think people go back to religion because they don't know how to live without external structure and it's too scary for them. Yeah, that's the thing. You're indoctrinated to it. You know what I mean? It's like the chicken and the egg. You are indoctrinated into these structures and these systems from birth. It's really challenging, okay? And that's why people have a lot of anxiety, okay? It's really challenging to break out of these things, right? Because you're basically in the 9-to-5 structure ever since you start school, right? So it's like that, like basically programs you to feel comfortable in that, okay? And most people are going to go to where they're comfortable. So that's the struggle. I'm just back up here. You said you think a lot of people believe in religion because, as I've said before, the people with the codes on this airplane are very good at propagandizing everyone else to take everyone's energy. That's exactly what it is. They siphon the energy. You said construction through religion. You said, yes, you can see that. Live righteously, always dependent what Saturn people did in their day and age. They ruled what people believe. Let's see. I'm just going back up. Oh, you dress up as Frida. No way. Oh my gosh, I love Frida. Okay, I'm going back to originally what one of you guys asked me about the religion. I guess maybe you were trying to say modern day religion and its connection to astrology. So within the books, it's coded with astrology, okay? So look at it this way. They told everyone astrology is demonic. Don't listen to astrology. And it's like, actually, this airplane is demonic because it's ruled by Saturn, okay? And it's like a lot of these, religions, again, allegedly, in my opinion, are inadvertently, worshiping basically the dark structure. They're feeding it. They're giving their life force energy to it. So think about it this way too, you guys, okay? Let's say you were a person in power and you wanted to keep your power, okay? Would you tell everybody your secrets? How you got there? What you did? Probably not, okay? Or maybe, I don't know, maybe you guys would, okay? But let's say you're like a psychopath, sociopath, narcissistic type of person, which usually are the people in power, right? You would do that and then you would confuse everybody by diverting them, okay? Focus over here while I do this, okay? It's like one of those things like, oh, do as I say, not as I do, Oh, yay, you saw my pictures in the canyon. Yay. You said you grew up in a religious cult. Yeah, it's a lot of deprogramming. You said you're a manifestor in human design. You cannot do 9 to 5. You said sticks. Yeah. I was reading someone's comment earlier. In my opinion, I think astrology. Okay, so people are going to say that Uranus, like, okay, for people who are quote unquote good at astrology, that's like Uranus, Aquarius domain. I find everything from Scorpio onwards, those people are going to be interested in astrology, okay? So Scorpio is going to be interested in it, Sag, then you're going to have Capricorn too, okay? But they're, again, hidden behind the scenes. And then, of course, Pisces and Aquarius, okay? So all those energies are going to be interested in astrology. I think this airplane is ruled by Saturn, allegedly, my opinion. And the whole reason you probably can't do a 9 to 5 is because the 9 to 5 structure was developed for the male hormonal system, which is on the 24-hour cycle, okay? It's not made for the female hormonal system, okay? The female hormonal system is 28 days, okay? So that's probably also why you struggle with the 9 to 5, or anyone who is feminine energy dominant, okay? You basically have to override your biology to fit into that structure is really what it is. So it's this, and then a lot of people do, and then they have like autoimmune issues or health issues because it's like you were basically in this energy that was like contradicting your own natural energy and your own natural rhythm. But that's like the annoyance and like the frustration with the structure, okay? It is a shadow masculine inverted structure is really what it is. You said you watch every season. You watch every season an episode of Love is Blind. Oh my gosh, did you watch the most recent season? What was that? You said it's a hot mess. You said, then I said it's dangerous to be a stay-at-home wife/mom. Yes, it's not that it's dangerous. It's dangerous not to have your own money, okay? The best case scenario would be for you to be able to have the time with your kids and to have your own money coming in somehow, okay? But not to depend on another person and you have no financial income. That's what I'm saying. Does that make sense? You said staying at home is more feminine than doing the 9 to 5. Absolutely. Absolutely, okay? It absolutely is. And that's why everything is inverted and an attack on the feminine energy down here. Do you guys see what I'm trying to say? the feminine energy, okay, regardless of stay-at-home wife or mom, like even if you're in your own feminine energy, okay, you will thrive more on your own cycle and on your own rhythm, okay, and not being in the 9 to 5, right? But then you can't make the money. Do you see what they did? And then you have to be dependent on the shadow masculine energy to get the money, whether it's through the job, whether it's through another person, or you're tired all the time, okay? That's the frustration down here. That's like the struggle. That's the struggle, okay? And, you know, it could also be people, like you mentioned, concerned. It could be people with water dominant energies, okay? Because I find sometimes, let's say you're a woman, but you have, let's say, more masculine energy in your chart, you could push through, okay? Like the Aries, Sag, and Leos. Absolutely, okay? They could absolutely push through within this structure. But let's say you're more feminine energy leaning, okay? Water, for sure, in your chart, you're going to struggle with this structure, okay? So that's what I'm saying, okay? The whole danger is to not have your own income and to be dependent on another person for them to be like, okay, now you can go spend money. Or for you to go to them and be like, can I buy this? Can I go buy this? And then they're like power tripping over there. Yes, if you do this. No, you can't because you didn't do this, okay? That's the dangerous part of it. That's all that I'm saying. So it's this. Yeah, exactly. It messes with the hormonal systems. And you know why they're doing that? You know why they're doing that? They're doing that because then the feminines won't gather together to break down the energetic structure, okay? So that's the whole story here. That's the whole story here. That's what's happening. That's what's happening. Because if you're able to be relaxed in a safe environment, okay, chilling, going with your own cycle, okay, and not just cycle like menstrual cycle, I mean like the cycle of your body, like your hormonal system, okay? Because one of you guys asked, like, what would a workday structure look like for a 28-day cycle? Depends what's going on, like at what point of your cycle you're in, right? Because sometimes you're more creative, sometimes you want to chill more. And it's like what people don't understand is like if you're someone who is menstruating, right, you are actually energetically cleansing whatever is going on around you, okay? And it's like, are you paid for that? That's like what the annoying thing is like you are not paid for energetically cleansing through your vessel whatever else is energetically going on around here. That person's issues that you picked up on, that person's issues. You need that period of time, okay, to maybe be in your own energy, to go maybe out in nature, to do your own thing, to, you know, do whatever, right? To cleanse, to re-energize, and then go back at it again, okay? Because everything like feminine energy leaning down here on this airplane is either demonized, it's not paid, okay, or it's not paid adequately, or it's looked down on, okay? Even like the thing that most are obsessed with, they use it as an insult. I'm not going to say the word on here, but it's a cat. You said, I think watching reality TV is a Scorpio thing? You said you think other energies can be into it too, but you enjoy it with your Scorpio energy. Yeah, it could be Scorpio to like analyze the people. I guess it depends what way you look at it. Sometimes it's a nice, I guess, I was going to say it's a nice break from the everyday people, but like they're also everyday people. Sometimes it can be scripted. I'm always looking up everyone's charts. I'm like, oh, what is going on here? Like, oh, what is happening? Hey, Clarice, how are you doing? You said recently you mentioned your obsession with wristwatches. Yes, I remember. You didn't mention that anytime you buy a moon watch, it breaks. Interesting. What's a moon watch? You said a moon watch shows you the phase of the moon. That's interesting. That's really interesting. You said, what effect does hormonal and then birth and then CONTROL have on the feminine? Oh, don't get me started on that one. Are you guys ready for that? Oh my goodness, the collective is not ready for these conversations. Have you noticed? Let's put the pieces together, okay? Have you noticed that so many people are doing IVF and they can't have kids? Why do you guys think that is? Okay? It's because of that, allegedly, in my opinion, okay? I'm going to call that BC, okay? So birth and then CONTROL, okay? Not only that, it numbs you. You can't feel your feelings, okay? And it disconnects you energetically, okay? Anything to do with like the PHARM pseudocol people, that's all inversions, okay? That sometimes even has a worse effect on you compared to, let's say, doing drugs. Okay? It's all drugs, don't get me wrong, okay? But I'm just saying, because it's synthetic, it's going to affect you more, okay? It might, affect your moods. And it's like, I just find it so interesting because all of these diagnoses, like, can you guys know how back in the day they used to do lobotomies? Like, that's what I find, like, all of these diagnoses currently, especially when it comes to the feminine, it's like the modern day lobotomy, okay? It's like they're trying to diagnose you when it's like you just need to get back in tune with the feminine energy and the feminine rhythm, okay? So that's the effect that it has. It has a huge effect, okay? But you are going to have to be on it and then not be on it and see, okay, how your body feels to decipher, okay, for yourself. For yourself, but yeah, because the feminine energy is suppressed, okay? Manning, I have a video on lot of spirits. It's suppressing the feminine energy because if the feminine energy is in tune, okay, you will see through the veil and you'll be psychic and you'll be able to assist people and you will be able to be in your own energy. You'll be able to be in your own power and we will break this whole energetic structure down, okay? So that's why the feminine energy is suppressed, okay? You said people think that you're crazy because you love getting your period for that reason. Yeah, exactly. It's like part of it. It's part of like the whole energy was happening. You're cleansing, okay? You're literally cleansing, okay? There's actually some people that say, this was an interesting theory that I heard from maybe 2 people now, but I've heard it from some other people and I thought that was interesting. They basically said that back in the day, okay, women, and okay, if this is a sensitive topic for you, like click off now, okay, or maybe like come back later if you're watching the live replay. But basically they used to say that women used to bleed, okay, because they said that like women would wear skirts because they would like bleed onto the ground and onto the earth. And they're saying now that's part of the reason they do a lot of these RITUALS, okay, where like the blood is being shed because the earth isn't getting like the blood from the women. So I found that interesting. It's like a theory, I guess. You said the collective has become much more open-minded in the last 3 years. Absolutely, in particular from what you've seen. But it's one thing to be open-minded and another thing to be gullible. Yeah, that's what the collective is going through. They're like mastering discernment right now. You said you refuse to take birth and then see. You said your cycle is very cyclical, like clockwork. The phases bring about the same energies each month. Yeah. You guys do what you want, obviously, right? You guys have the free will to do what you want, you know? But it's like, it definitely has an effect hormonally, okay? It messes up the whole system is really what it is. And I find a lot of the time it just like numbs you energetically from the feelings. And like, yeah, the feelings are basically the guide, like the intuition. You say you think spirits are refusing to come to Earth. You said you're Cancer rising, you feel that so strongly. Yay! You said you think that spirits are refusing to come to Earth right now because we're about to go through utter hell. You said that's why there's a low birth rate. Yeah, but it's like, okay, think about it this way. Like, okay, even in nature, okay? And this is the other thing. This is how you know a lot of things are genetically modified also, but I'm not going to get into that rant. But even in nature, like the animals stop mating when there's like something that's off, right? So like that's what's happening right now. Like if you can see what's happening in the world, right? You're kind of like, would you want to bring another soul into this? So it's like 2 things that are happening at once, you know? It's like the state of the world, essentially. So you said if this Earth plane wasn't inverted, there probably wouldn't even need to be a true industrialized work cycle. Exactly. People would go by the moon and you said, and we have enough resources here that we wouldn't have to work. Exactly. This is what you guys need to understand. Working is Saturn, okay? So the fact that we have to work, that's Saturn, okay? And it's also to distract people. It's like, why are you paying to live? Like, why are you paying to breathe? Like, why do you have to pay as soon as you exit your house for whatever? You know what I mean? That's why I said to you guys, like, if everyone wanted to truly protest, in my own opinion, allegedly, I'm not organizing anything, just my own opinion. If people wanted to truly protest, they would all stop going to WORK and they would all stop paying their BILLS. That would be the true protest. Otherwise, like the screaming in the streets, that doesn't do anything. They've been screaming in the streets for centuries. That doesn't do anything, okay? So that would be the only real and true protest is when you hit the wallets, in my own opinion. And it's like people are too divided to do that. So this is what I mean when I hear people complain and then the next day they're going back, you know, I'm like, why are you complaining then? You're feeding it, you know? Or like, at least like maybe try to figure out how you can work for yourself. You know what I mean? If you have to. It just is what it is. So it's like, you know, that would be the only PROTEST in my opinion, like the real one. Would be this. That's just my opinion though. But what do I know? I'm just some person on the internet. Hey Kara, how are you doing? You said it changes your sexual behavior as well. It seems like it's more for men than for women. Yeah, it is. It is. It all is. It's all that. You guys have to understand, like when you guys see that, like that's what's happening, okay? It's all for them. It's all to regulate them. It's all to regulate their urges, you know, so then they don't become violent and destructive. Instead of them getting in tune, you know, more with their heart space, so they come out of their lower chakras. Okay, that's actually what should be happening. Everyone should be coming out of the lower chakras, or like directing the sexual energy into creativity or other things. Okay, something productive. The sexual energy, when it's inverted and when it doesn't have a positive outlet, it goes into violence and destruction. Okay, and why does that happen? Because people are stuck in their lower chakras. Okay, so it's like for a long time, certain people have been a cushion for that, and that's kind of what we're coming, you know, to an end with. You said birth control also changes what pheromones you're biologically attracted to. No way. So you're attracted to people who you'll produce weaker offspring with. Well, that makes a lot of sense. Wow, that is so interesting. Let me screenshot that. That is so interesting. Okay, well, there's that too. Because honestly, like, should half these people even be procreating? Let's be so for real. And that's the other thing too. Like, why does everyone need to have a kid? Like, you know? You said female sexuality is much more context dependent and cyclical. You said you're a guy and you feel like women, but you feel like every 28 days or something you feel differently, and people around don't get it and they seem more off balance. Maybe you have more water in your chart. You said you'd be interested in the energy of the moon affect you by the phase you are born, or if it affects you by the phase you're born, or if it is general energy for everyone. But this will depend on what ritual / energy we are creating meanwhile. Can you reword your question? You said, oh my gosh, hey, great goodness, goddess, gratitude. You said came home to find a bunch of ladybugs in your doorway. No way, did you look up the meaning of ladybugs? What about knowing if you will relocate? I'm curious to know why you're wondering if, and why, if you want to do it, you don't just do it. You said you pay attention to behavior and the states of animals, especially birds. That's what I'm saying. I'm always paying attention to animals. And the thing is, animals, most of them have a mating season. So what happens? What happens? You know, or offspring. Like, there would be a certain time of year where they would get pregnant and they'd give birth. Not every single month of the year. So what's that about? Is that another ritual? Just something to think about. You said awakening means the veil is lifting. Yes. You said, when did you guys have your first awakening? You said yours was 2019-20. Yes, you guys, when did you guys have your first awakening? My first one ever was 2012, when the world didn't end. Me and my friends were ready. We were like, the world is done. December 21st, 2012, it's over. Game over. And it didn't. And that was like the first crack in the whole thing. Okay, so that was the first one. And since then, it's been multiple others. Okay, but that was the first one for me. You said you've never been on birth C, but you've heard wild stories about people who have been on it. And then you said, but you know, people do get help, quote unquote, from using it. Yeah, I know there's certain people who, you know, maybe they want to regulate their cycle, I guess, or sometimes they... Okay, hold on, you guys. Can you guys hear me still? I got a call and sometimes it glitches and then the sound gets messed up. So hopefully you guys can still hear me. Yeah, so I understand, like, that some people, you know, are trying to get help from it to, like, regulate certain things or things within their body. But my thing is like, where did the root of that issue come from? Like, that's what I want to know. Like, where did it originate from? You know what I mean? So, like, that's what I'm always trying to understand. Like, what is the root of it all? Oh, good. You said if the moon phase affects you more by the phase you were born, like your own cycle that is fulfilled since you were born, or is it in general? Oh, I see what you mean. Yeah, you can research that too, like the cycle that you were born on, or like the moon phase. Okay, yes, it's gonna mean something for you. You said 2012 was a huge year. Yeah, it was for me. You said, speaking of the power of commerce, boycott, and mouses, recently in the US, a TV host was fired and then people boycotted that big mouse. Oh my gosh. Big mouse company, you're so funny. And they reinstated the host. Yeah, another ritual. They're always like trying to show you, like, they're always trying to show you, like, I hope you guys understand that they're always mocking the collective. They're always trying to show you and be like, look, the rules don't apply to them. You know what, like, that's what they're always trying to show people. You know what I mean? That's why people need to stop paying them any mind, because it's always a mockery. Like, they're always trying to mock people and be like, look, the rules do not apply to them. That's like what they're trying to show you. Like, it's in plain sight. You know what I mean? So, like, that's why they do these things, okay? And then they go off and they laugh about it in their corner, okay? Or like all of these politicians that are there, like this person, they all are in the same bed together. Maybe even literally. I don't know, okay? Allegedly, in my opinion. You said you retired this year at 60 because of long COVID. How's that going for you? You said 31 years of 8 to 5, and that's what became impossible. You're supposed to listen to your body's need for rest. Exactly. But you're still human doing your schedule is all over. Yeah, so I heard that the people who can like prosper in that schedule, yes, are men, okay, because of their hormone cycle, but it's also people who don't menstruate anymore, okay? So you're going to be back on that rhythm. I'm not exactly sure what it's called. It has a name. And then people who are menstruating, okay, which predominantly women, they are on the 28-day hormonal cycle, okay? You said your first big awakening was in 2012 when you left the Christian church. Congratulations. You said, no, you didn't look up the meaning, but lately you've been thinking you're coming into more fortune. Good luck. Good. You're open to receive. Sending you good vibes. You said the energy is more potent on a full moon. It's potent, but it's like people feed into it. Do you know what I mean? That's why it's potent. That's why like the retrogrades are intense. That's why this is intense. That's why that's intense. It's like because the collective. Okay, that's what I wanted to tell you guys earlier too. Okay, so back to what I was saying to you guys earlier about the basically like Saturn maturing after the age of 35, 36, right? So back in the day, people didn't even get spiritually initiated into certain groups until they were 40, okay? And again, that's just things that I have learned. So again, you know, they change all the information, right? But that's what I learned back then. So it's like the whole reason that took place was because probably they were waiting for the Saturn to mature and for you to have certain amounts of experiences, right, to come into spiritual maturity, okay? Which is usually in these certain groups, okay, that I learned about back then. It would be around the age of 40, okay? So with that being said, okay, just relating it back to everything, it's like even in these certain practices, right? It's like the knowledge wasn't given to people. That's why secret societies exist, because a lot of the collective, you guys, is fear-based, okay? So because the collective is fear-based, they learn about something, they go automatically into fear, okay? So they learn about, oh, full moon, oh my gosh, it's a full moon, I'm gonna hide, okay? Or they find about Mercury retrograde, oh my gosh, Mercury retrograde, I'm gonna hide. And that's the issue right now, because it's like people's fear like is amplifying, let's say, the transits, for example, right? Because most of the collective is in the fear, right? They're in the lower chakras, they're like fear-based and all of these things, right? So that's why the secret societies existed, because you have to have done maybe a certain level of inner work, or for you to understand certain things, right? For you to be able to hold that information so you don't put the fear into it. So that's why like everything is amplified now. Does that make sense? There's another Saturn return in your 50s. 56, 57 is usually what it is. You said you want to retire in Europe. You said the laid back life there. Linger. You said learning to linger in blood. Plus, you'd save money for years. Mountain air. And yes, the food is definitely way better in Europe. And honestly, anywhere outside of North America, the food is better. Or cleaner, or whatever. Less preservatives and like all the things. You said when you can't go to the store without being taken out along the way, it's not the end of the world. Curious to know what you were referring to. You said, I'm just going back up. You said, what do you expect on that Saturn return? So the weight, hey, I'm glad that you're here during a live stream. Yeah, it's around 56, 57, 58, like for 3 years, right? You're in that 3-year bracket. So usually depends kind of like what was taking place, right? The first Saturn return is usually you being put on the road of responsibility. And usually the second Saturn return is when you kind of start to see even the fruits of a lot of your labors in the early part of your life. Now, it depends if you had kids. For a lot of people, the second Saturn return is like when the kids leave the nest, for example. So you're like re-finding yourself, okay? You know, rediscovering who you are. What is this new identity? Whether you have kids or not, that's probably going to take place. So it's this... Nice, enjoy. Yeah, definitely like in Europe, basically like they just, hold on, I'm trying to think. They work to live. And then in North America, they live to work. I think that that's how that saying goes. But yeah, they don't really like focus on work too much. Like they're always chilling. Like I remember the first time I went to London, England, I was like, do any of these people have jobs? It was like, I don't know, like 12, one maybe. And they were like all in the parks, like having lunch, you know? So they enjoy life more for sure. It's like less intensity, less pressure, okay? Depends like what, I guess, part of Europe, but I mean, you said that's what you like when I talk about not following the transits, because sometimes people get scared. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because, and then whatever they worry about comes true. Yeah, because it's like, because you're afraid of it, it's like you're pulling the energy, okay? Yeah, that's why I don't do transit readings. I don't do predictive readings. I'm not going to predict things. Like, you have the free will to do what you want, you know? And the thing is like I've gone on those rants before too. It's like sometimes when you do predictions for people without realizing you're like tying yourself like energetically to them, okay? Because they're like waiting, right? But it's like you being in that waiting energy, you're pushing that thing away, okay? People don't understand the metaphysical aspect of things, right? So let's say you go to a psychic and the psychic says, and like, let's say you didn't know this information, right? You're like going about your schedule, you're doing everything that you normally do, right? You go to a psychic, let's say the psychic says, oh, in 2 months you're gonna find, you know, your dream job. And then you sit in your room, you don't leave your house, you're like, okay, 2 months the job is gonna come, and you completely disregard your schedule. Now you're pushing that back, okay? You're pushing it back maybe to 6 months because you're waiting for it. You're being put into this waiting energy, okay? So that's the thing. And same with the transits. Like the way that I see it is like, you guys, we're meant to transcend the natal chart, okay? We're not meant to feed into it at all, okay? You're meant to learn it and transcend it, detach from it, okay? Because otherwise it's controlling your life. You said, is it true that 12th house sun people find their egos once they move far away from their homeland? Yeah, it's true. Usually the way they say it is a little bit intense, but they say you die away from the place where you were born, okay, when you're a 12th house sun. But yes, you find more success, I guess, away from where you were born, okay? You said the lunch siestas. Yeah, no, I love it. I'm on that schedule, you guys. You said your friends in London hung out at the park all day. Yeah, they don't care. I don't know how it is now, because like the first time when I witnessed that was what, like 2014 maybe? So I don't know what's going on now, but yeah, that's what they were doing back then. It was awesome. You said you're having your Saturn opposition and it's not fun. It's worse than the Saturn return. Yeah, because it's like creating, and that's what I'm trying to say. It's like people are obsessed with talking about the Saturn return, but you're first of all always in a Saturn transit, but it's like the square. To me, squares are more intense, okay? But also the opposition, okay? Those times are gonna maybe be even more intense for you. So it's this. You said Italy closes stuff down in the afternoon. Yeah. I mean, I don't know what to say. Like, my family's from a country where they have like 50% unemployment rates, so nobody really wants to work over there. There's actually a saying in my language. There's a saying in my language, you guys. Okay, it's probably not going to sound the same, and the effect's not going to be the same when I translate it to English, but it's like when they're talking about someone looking for a job, they're going to be like, oh, that person's looking for a job, but they're praying to God that they don't find one because no one wants to work. So they're hilarious there. Especially there, like, yeah, all they do is like chill, have coffee all day. They barely do anything. You said the second Saturn return was a roller coaster ride. You survived though. Yay, congratulations. You said you want money on your next Saturn return. You have Sun and Saturn in the 8th. You said you're 41 and Pluto and Neptune squares your butt. Oh, you said squares kicked your butt, and now Uranus opposing. Oh, that's going to be intense. Okay, that's so interesting. See, I was literally going to look at the transits today, and then I got diverted from it. But I was going to check the transits today. You said, how do you exist in this world with all this energy, with all the energy wanting to suppress? You feel like an alien / angel. You said also your favorite scents are theory, muggler. I don't know what that is. Honestly, you have to find something that you like to do and do that thing, okay? So something that you enjoy doing, and also incorporate some sort of exercise in there. That's the way that I see it. Like, that's my philosophy in life. Like, do what you love. I know it sounds corny, but it's like, find some sort of hobby that you like to do, focus on that thing, and like try to detach from the rest. That's the way that I see it. There's nothing else that you can do. Like, you can know all these things, but like I was saying earlier, if everyone's going to continue doing the same thing, feeding into the matrix, you know, engaging in all these things, arguing about this, that, this person, that person, you know, all these societal constructs, it's like, you know, they're still feeding into it, right? So find something that you love to do to like tune out the noise, you know, do that thing, and also exercise. I will definitely add exercise in there. In these times, exercise is so important. And that's the other thing that I wanted to mention too. I wanted to tell you guys, you know, it's like, if you're someone who collects a lot of energy, so if you're watery, okay, it's like you probably collect a lot of energy from the people and surroundings and everybody around you, right? And then you might struggle with weight. And if you're struggling with weight, it's because you don't have something incorporated in your practice to purge out those energies, aka some form of exercise, okay? So whether that's yoga, whether that's walking, whether that's going to the gym. I mean, exercise is going to be beneficial for everyone, but especially the watery people, like they're holding on to a lot of the time. If they don't have something incorporated in their practice that like allows them to purge it out of their system, it like latches onto you, okay? Move towards excitement. Yeah. And like you said, you don't dream of labor. Yeah. And having some sort of goals or like personal goals is really what it is. Like always finding something new to do, you know, like something that you enjoy, you know, some sort of new hobby where you can meet people and, you know, maybe have like shared interests. You said, can you read the sidereal chart if it's presented in a tropical format? I don't do sidereal readings or Vedic astrology, but they do have the tropical, they have the tropical system within sidereal. They have whole signs and then they have tropical, like the Placidus. I think you're talking about like the circle charts, but they do have Placidus sidereal and then they have whole sign sidereal. So that I do know. You said, what do I say about Uranus Capricorn sextile Uranus Scorpio synastry? It's generational, so you guys are probably resolving something within a generation, but like the Uranus to Uranus, it's like more subtle. It's in the background. You're not going to feel it as much, you know? I'd like to see what else is going on in the chart between the two people to get a better idea. But yeah, Uranus to Uranus, it's generational is really what it is, because it's Capricorn and Scorpio, maybe something to do with like business, coming up with new ideas, like helping each other in that way. But it's like for the subset of the generation. I hope that makes sense. You said you're back in your hometown and you've been getting suggestions and astrological advice and intuitive hits to move away. You said you have to wait until your cat passes on. Can you bring your cat with you? Always listen to your intuition. Hey, Nate. You said, can I tell you about... You said you're walking while listening to this. Yay! It feels amazing to move your body. Yeah, you guys, walking is like the best thing ever. Okay, even if you need to like regulate your system, walking is the best thing. You don't have to do anything like hardcore and intense, like let's say going to the gym, although that might make you feel good too. Walking will also get the job done. You said, can I tell you about Cancer South Node in the 8th house? Okay, so Cancer South Node in the 8th, that means your North Node would be Capricorn and it would be in the 2nd. So you're coming out of a lifetime where it was probably very much about the material. You're going more into the spiritual realms in this lifetime, maybe transmuting, healing, transmuting energy, you know, feelings, talking about emotions, creativity, all of these things, okay? Okay, guys, if you like your own natal chart reading, synastry reading, a progressed natal chart reading, mini synastry reading, mini natal chart reading, okay, you guys can send me an email. So you go on my website, under the readings tab, the email window pops up, send me an email and we will go from there, okay? Thank you all for being here, for being part of this live, for your likes, your shares, your subscribes, your comments. I will catch you guys on the next one. Thank you so much. Bye.